I would like to call this meeting of Senate Finance to order. And Secretary, or Mr. Thorley, will you please call the roll?
Senator Dennis.
Here.
Senator Kekeffer.
Here.
Senator Goycochea.
Here.
Senator Hammond. Senator Ratty. Senator Severs-Gansert.
Here.
Senator Cannizzaro. Senator Dondero-Loop. Chair Brooks.
Here, so we have a quorum, and we can mark the others present as they arrive. Tonight we have 6 bills on the agenda, and we will take them in order. And we will start with Senate Bill 292. The sponsor is Senator Lang, who has joined us today. And it is a bill that revises provisions relating to elections. And Mr. Thorley, if you could walk us through the fiscal impact of this bill, please.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Wayne Thorley for the record, LCB Fiscal. The Secretary of State's office submitted a fiscal note on the bill as introduced, indicating the bill would require the Secretary of State's office to conduct a voter education campaign to inform voters about the choice to use straight ticket voting. The Secretary of State's office estimates this voter education campaign would cost $660,000 in FY23, based on previous experience with voter education campaigns. Mark Voloshin, Deputy Secretary of State for Elections, is available to provide testimony on the Secretary of State's fiscal note. Staff also notes that various local governments submitted fiscal notes on the bill as introduced, indicating the bill would have a fiscal impact on their county.
Thank you, Mr. Thorley. And Senator Lang, if you just wanted to walk us through what the bill does briefly, and maybe concentrating on the piece that has created the fiscal note, and that's the voter education piece. And but just walk us through the bill, and then I'll open it for questions, and then go to the Secretary of State's office, Mr. Voloshin, and see if we can talk about the fiscal note.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, I'm Roberta Lang. I am the state senator from Senate District 7 in Las Vegas. And I also have on video Martin Fitzgerald, who's here also to help answer questions. Thank you for having me here. Sections 1, 4, and 5 of this bill relate to providing a straight ticket voting option. Sections 1 and 5 provide that all ballots in any form must permit a voter to vote for all the candidates of one political party on the ballot in partisan races by marking the name of the political party at the top of the ballot. Section 4 is existing voter education programs provided by, Section 4 requires that already existing voter education programs provided by the county election offices incorporate in their program information on how to cast a straight ticket vote if a voter so chooses. The straight ticket option is an option. A voter can choose to vote the straight ticket, or they can vote for the straight ticket and then choose to vote another party for one race, and that would take precedence over the straight ticket. There's no mandate. Sections 2 and 3 of this bill update the Nevada law as it relates to third-party ballot access. Section 2, we've reduced the requirements back to where they were for signatures, so that's not changing. Then Section 6 of the bill requires the governor to appoint a person who is the same political party for a Senate vacancy in filling those vacancies. And then the next components relate to how to fill vacancies that arise for representatives in Congress. And it requires, do you want me to go through the details of that, or is that, okay. And then also we go down to how to appoint a position if there's a vacancy in the legislature, where the legislature would give recommendations to the county commissioners on their thought of who should fill that position. And that's pretty much of the bill. But finally, Section 15 of this bill removes NRS requirements on the internal structure of political parties in Nevada, because we felt they could violate the U.S. Supreme Court ruling in the Democratic Party versus Wisconsin.
Thank you, Senator Lang. Before we go to address the fiscal note, do we have any questions for Senator Lang from the committee? It does not look as we do. So I would like to go to Mr. Relashin from the Secretaries of State. Thank you. Good to see you. And really talk about why the Secretary of State submitted the fiscal note on this bill and what led you to come up with that particular amount.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good evening, Chair Brooks and members of the committee. Mark Velashin, Deputy Secretary of State for Elections. The Office of the Secretary of State identified that the passing of SB 292 would result in a fiscal impact of approximately $660,000 because of the required voter education campaign. This requirement is derived from Section 4 of the bill, as mentioned, which requires a voter education program with information concerning straight ticket voting. Our cost estimate for this voter education campaign was modeled in part after the voter education campaign we conducted upon the passage of AB 4 during the 32nd special session. The goal, of course, would not be to spend all of the requested funds, but would be rather to provide information to the electorate in the most cost-efficient manner and then return what is left to the general fund. This voter education campaign would provide specific reassurance to your constituents about straight ticket voting. You see, one thing we learned in the 2020 election cycle is that a sea change has occurred, and our electorate is now more hungry for information about changes in election law than they've been in the last few decades. If SB 292 is passed, voters will certainly attempt to educate themselves on what a straight ticket voting means. And that means they'll quickly learn how the courts or legislatures of 16 different states have already repealed straight ticket voting in some form or fashion. This will cause significant concern and confusion across the state, and that will be a specific target of our education campaign. Our unified voter education campaign, initiated at the state level, will work with local advocacy groups, the county clerks, and elected officials to explain the process to voters so that they understand how straight ticket voting works in relation to major and minor political parties, how it doesn't prevent down ballot changes, and how it still requires voter input on nonpartisan races and ballot questions. Without this focused effort, voter confusion will increase and confidence in our electoral process will decrease. Finally, our total marketing budget as an agency is only $900 per fiscal year, and none of that is in the elections budget. It's for commercial recordings whose rates speak for themselves and need very little advertising. That is why we have identified this fiscal impact to the agency if SB 292 passes. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Melashin. I appreciate that. And so I'm looking at Section 4 of the bill, and it the portion you reference says the county or city clerk shall provide a voter education program specific to the voting system used by the county or city. I guess I understand why that would have some of the county and city clerks interpreting that in one way or another, but just really kind of want to understand why the Secretary of State's office feels that that directs them to do anything at all.
Certainly, Senator. Thank you for the question. Mark Velashin, Deputy Secretary of State for Elections for the record. The idea is that a unified effort across the state is the most important and effective means to communicate with the electorate. While the counties have identified with their vendors, the systems they have in place are able to be modified, so there wouldn't be a requirement outside of, again, notifying and explaining to the electorate what that means. By having a unified standard voice across the entire state, explaining what's going on, in addition to, frankly, what the counties are doing. Again, the intent there is so that there's a unified effort. The electorate in each county is hearing not only from their respective county clerks, but also at the state level, what's going on to simply re-emphasize and, again, rebuild the voter confidence.
I appreciate that, Mr. Velashin, but do you read anything in Section 4 that directs the Secretary of State's office to do anything at all?
Mark Velashin for the record. Specifically, Chair, not specifically, rather, but we interpret this to be implied, again, based on our experiences during the 2020 election cycle and the amount of confusion that came because of changes to election law.
Thank you, Mr. Velashin. And I'll go back to, before I turn it over to the committee, to Senator Lang. Senator Lang, as the sponsor of the bill, was the intent for the Secretary of State's office to do any voter outreach at all?
No, Chair, it was always meant to be the counties do it because they regularly communicate with voters and voters are used to getting their voting books before the election. So we thought the best way for them to get that information would be through the counties.
Thank you. And so I have no further questions. So what I'll do is I'll turn it over to the committee and for questions to either Senator Lang, the bill sponsor, or to Mr. Lashin from the Secretary of State's office. Senator Keffer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So to be clear, we would expect the chief elections officer of the state to do zero outreach regarding a massive change to our election procedure that many states are actually abandoning at this point.
Is that directed to me, Chair?
I believe so.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
And if you have anyone that's presenting with you that might be able to answer that as well, feel free to call them up.
Sure. Thank you, Senator Keffer. We would expect our counties to do the same outreach they always do to voters, and to be consistent with what voters are used to.
So to be clear, it would be just amendments included in the voter's guide that's mailed out prior to the election?
Thank you for the question. It would be, they send out the voter guide, so it could be a whole page. I would think because it's a new change, they would want to put that at the front of the book to alert voters to the change. But they regularly communicate to voters. Voters are used to getting communication to them, not only through the voter book, but through Facebook, and I've seen it on Twitter. So there are many different avenues where voters can get information.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Keffer.
Chair, may I
please,
just
go
add
ahead.
one more thing? In my amendment that I did, I allowed the Legislative Commission to actually cover the cost with special elections and anything for the locals that had fiscal notes attached to them.
Okay, thank you. I have a question from Senator Severs-Gansert.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. So this is for Mr. Loskin. I just was wondering if the Secretary of State spent time when we had to go to all mail ballot, both the primary and then we did in the general, but the primary, I guess both of them really, the messaging as far as time and expense from the Secretary of State, because we did have a change in that elections.
Thank you for the question, Senator. Mark Voloshin for the record. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. The Office of the Secretary of State worked with a contractor. Again, because we do not have a budget for marketing, that's not something that we normally do. In recognizing the importance previously to changes to any election laws, the determination was made that by reaching out to the electorate, again, through an effective means, and of course, all the coordination that goes into that, making sure that we discuss and very carefully identify what that communication would look like to make sure that it maximizes its impact, to make sure that we do it in a cost-efficient manner so that we're not wasting taxpayer dollars in an effort to educate the electorate on these changes. There was significant staff time allocated to the crafting of that message and making sure that we got word out to the electorate as appropriate.
I have just a couple more. So, as a follow-up, when the counties notify voters, does any of that material go through you first? Do you have to look at what they prepared that goes out on ballots or messaging, anything like that? Is there anything that's centralized, I guess?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Mark Voloshin for the record. Yes, ma'am. We do review and provide some assistance, but again, ultimately, we do not direct, this agency does not control the clerks and the registrars. They work for their Board of County Commissioners. So we provide some assistance and oversight in reviewing documents, but ultimately it's up to them what they publish.
Thank you. And then just my last comment is that I know I've served on elections and procedures. This is I think it's my 6th time in the Assembly and then in the Senate now. And I know when we make changes to what it looks like when people vote, sometimes it's confusing. And I know there's an option for individuals to vote straight ticket and then go down the ballot and change that. And so I think it's really important that they understand how to do that. It's kind of like when I think at one point in time we had to add none of the above, and we don't have a write-in ballot, but when we make those changes, as far as the process, it's really important that people understand that if this bill does pass, that they can opt out. And I appreciate that you put that in the language, Senator Lang, but it can be really confusing because of technology and the way the screens show up. So I guess I'm concerned about making sure that messaging gets out, and I appreciate the work the Secretary of State has done before. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Do we have any other questions from the committee members? All right, I have one just last question, and I think this is probably for Mr. Woloshyn. If in the event that in past elections, if a county incurred costs, how does the county usually handle that?
Thank you for the question, Chair. Mark Voloshin, for the record. Really, it depends on the nature of the cost, Chair. In many cases, again, if it relates to the mail-in ballots, for example, the ballot stock, there's actually a regulation that refers those costs back to the Office of the Secretary of State. Additionally, if there were unfunded mandates at the state level, the counties would identify those costs up to the Office of the Secretary of State, and we would use the Help America Vote Act, or HAVA grant, to help compensate the counties for those costs as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, I believe it does. And so the HAVA grant is there to support voting operations, and you've used that in the past to support counties if they had additional costs associated with that? Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair. The HAVA grant specifically is intended for the improvement of the administration of federal elections. So anything related to that, again, can be used or can be applied towards the HAVA grant.
Thank you. And do any of the committee members have any other questions for Senator Lang or Mr. Woloshyn from the Secretary of State's office? It does not appear as if we do. So I really appreciate your time this evening, sir, and thank you for coming in. And Senator Lang, do you have a comment?
I do, Chair. I would just like to clarify, because I think I misspoke a little bit about the county fiscal notes. The reason those county fiscal notes are on our bill is in the event that there is a special U.S. House election, it would cost the counties money to run that election, and that's why those fiscal notes are on the bill.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. And so I think that we have a very clear legislative record here in front of us on the intent of the bill and who it's directing the education program to. And I think that that is really what we were trying to establish. So I appreciate that. And if there are no further questions or comments from the committee, I can bring this meeting, or I can go to testimony and support. Do we have any testimony and support here in the room? I do not see any. So can we see if we have any testimony and support on the telephone?
Thank you, Chair Brooks. To testify in support on Senate Bill 292, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in support at this time.
Thank you. Now I'll go if we have anyone in opposition to the bill here in the room. I don't see anyone, so can we see if we have anyone in opposition to the bill on the phones, please?
Certainly. Thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition on Senate Bill 292, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 544. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you. My name is Gennady Stolyarov II, first name Gennady, last name Stolyarov. As chairman of the U.S. Transhumanist Party and chief executive of the Nevada Transhumanist Party, I strongly urge you to oppose SB 292. I note that I'm acting as a private citizen on my personal time, not representing any agency of the state of Nevada, not using state equipment to provide any testimony on this bill. But I do expect Section 2 of the amended SB 292 will have adverse fiscal impacts. In particular, the equal apportionment requirement for petition signatures makes it practically impossible for a minor party to qualify by petition, and also, in my view, would unnecessarily burden the Secretary of State's office. Currently, to validate a signature, the Secretary of State's office simply needs to consider whether that individual signature belongs to a registered voter in this state. Section 2 would pose the additional burden of verifying that the signatures are equally apportioned among the 4 petition districts. This could cause major additional expenditure of time and resources beyond what can be formally budgeted for. Requiring equal apportionment renders it almost effortless for a major party to challenge petitions submitted by minor parties by counting the signatures from each district and noting any difference whatsoever, even literally one signature. The amended Section 2 would not allow any room for deviation from a strictly equal apportionment. While it would be easy for major parties to challenge a minor party's petition under these circumstances, this would create more difficulties for the Secretary of State's office and the judicial system because more challenges would be initiated than otherwise. SB 292 is counterproductive, and the fiscal burdens and risks it imposes upon the state have no offsetting benefits. Indeed, SB 292 exacerbates a highly polarized political situation, disenfranchises supporters of minor parties, and restricts voter choice. At a time of great fiscal strain to the state of Nevada and immense economic hardship for its citizens, it is highly imprudent to impose additional costs upon the state for the doubly unwise and deleterious purpose of raising the barriers to ballot access for minor political parties. Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits, 859. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon. Good evening. This is Janine Hansen, Janinehannesen. I am the state chairman of the Independent American Party. We oppose SB 292, particularly the portion which imposes straight ticket voting. Although the cost to the state does not appear to be great, the cost to an informed electorate is immense. Straight ticket voting exists currently in only 6 states: Alabama, Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, Oklahoma, and South Carolina. All of these states abolished straight ticket voting since 1994 to 2000. Utah, Pennsylvania, Michigan, New Mexico, Iowa, Texas, Indiana, Rhode Island, West Virginia, North Carolina, Wisconsin, New Hampshire, Missouri, Illinois, South Dakota, and Georgia. Straight ticket voting has been found to be very confusing to voters. Straight ticket voting hurts nonpartisan races like judges and school board races, which are at the bottom of the ballot because the voters think they are finished voting. The voters also fail to vote on ballot questions and proposed constitutional amendments. Straight ticket voting discourages voter engagement in trying to obtain good information about those running for office. Essentially, it encourages lazy voting. Informed voters improve the election process, and that results in elected officials who better represent the electorate and their concerns. Straight ticket voting creates a disincentive for voters to become informed about candidates. Although the sections of the bill proposing earlier deadlines for minor parties do not affect the Independent American Party, because we have secured our ballot access, we oppose these portions of the bill as well. I served as National Ballot Access Coordinator for the National Constitution Party in 96, 04, and 08. It is difficult for minor parties to gain ballot access. In fact, in some states, it's nearly impossible. Is this the objective of this legislation, to maintain the monopoly of the two parties? In closing, we oppose straight ticket voting as antithetical to the goal of an informed electorate. Thank you very much, and I did submit my testimony online.
Caller with the last three digits, 527. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, good evening. This is Kimberly Fergus, KIMBERLYFERGUS. I'm just going to be talking off the cuff here because I haven't had time to prepare. However, this is insanity. This is insane. I hope all you senators that were elected by your people remember that it's we the people, not we the party. And our state, we cannot afford this. I just got back from the grocery store and everything's sky high. We had so many challenges in our 2020 election. And yes, I did work on the election integrity team. And yes, I'm still fighting with everybody that says we're not doing enough. The Secretary of State is not doing anything to come up with voter integrity. So I am begging you. No, I'm not begging you. I'm asking you to do what your constituents put you in office to do, and that would be to vote no on the straight ticket voting. I honestly feel like I'm in Alice in Wonderland and I fell down a rabbit hole. And I'm thinking I'm going to wake up. This is just a nightmare. I'm going to be 62 years old. Why is there so much shenanigans going on with the one thing that is so precious to the American patriots? Voting. Do not go straight ticket. Thank you. Have a blessed night.
Caller with the last three digits, 864, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
My name is Richard Clark, Richard Clark. I am a teacher in the Washoe County School District. I spent the last 18 years teaching my students how to citizen, and I am calling to oppose the block party ballot or the straight ticket ballot. I've spent my 18-year career teaching students how important it is to vote, that their vote matters. But over that time, I've also learned that it's not just voting that is important, it's the candidates whose name are on the ballot, as well as the office that these candidates are running for. And I've spent the last few election cycles really spending time with my students to teach them that they have to know who's running for what and why they're qualified. We have a number of positions in the state of Nevada, particularly at the county level, that are partisan, such as county administrator, county assessor, county clerk, that are partisan, and these positions are filled by people who aren't partisan in nature. Their jobs are not invoking policy, they're enforcing policy. And this bill is regressive. This is aspects of the Gilded Age. We got rid of straight ticket voting to give power to the people, to the power to the candidates, and for us to put back a straight ticket ballot is back to the 18th century when machine politics ran big cities so they could dominate people's lives. This stinks of hyperpartisanship. In a world of already too much hyperpartisanship and winner take all, we need our voters to not only take the time to vote, which I am 100% for better access to the ballot, but we also have to have them be informed on who they're voting for. And voting for a party is not it. James Madison in Federalist 51 says, government is not run by angels. We need the people to make sure that the people that are running for those offices, whether they're Republican, Democrat, nonpartisan, or third party, are qualified for the job, not because they have an elephant or a donkey next to their name. Thank you very much.
Caller with the last three digits, 213, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last three digits, 213, you are unmuted. Please proceed with your testimony. Since there's no response, we'll move on to the next caller. Caller with the last three digits, 779. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hi, it's Richard Winger, RICHARDWINGER. I'd like to talk about the part of the bill that moves the petition deadline several weeks earlier. I'm kind of surprised that the consultant doesn't mention more about this part of the bill because it's very likely to be held unconstitutional. And when states lose constitutional voting rights cases, they have to pay attorney's fees, which can amount to hundreds of thousands of dollars. The Ninth Circuit already said that June is too early, and even though a cursory reading of the bill might make you think this puts it in early June, the real deadline is about a month earlier because the Nevada Election Code describes the deadline for the Secretary of State to receive the signatures, but before that, almost a month before, the signatures have to be finished and turned into the counties. I have a chart in my newsletter, Ballot Access News, that shows 53 court cases that have struck down early petition deadlines. Two of them are Nevada, and there's 6 cases that struck down June, and 2 more that strike down May. So I beg you to please take out the part of this bill that changes the petition deadline. It's been 10 years since any party petition succeeded in Nevada. That alone shows it's already too hard, and it makes no sense to make it even more difficult. Thank you.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 373. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Bob Russo. That is BOB-RUSSO, and I am in opposition of SB 292. One of the major problems I see in our country today is an electorate that is becoming less informed on how our government functions and vote based on emotion on what the government is willing to give to them. Voting is an incredible gift that we each take to the voting booth. Before we buy a new car or refrigerator, we do our homework to make sure that what we buy meets our needs. We should do the same when we vote, carefully reviewing each candidate to make sure that they support the values we hold dear as Americans. Unfortunately, SB 292 and straight ticket voting does just the opposite. It devalues voting. It encourages people to be lax and neglectful about voting. And sadly, taking this further, it could cause some members of the legislature who are doing a good job to be voted out of office. It's also my understanding that this bill would transfer the power to fill legislative vacancies from the counties to the state legislature or away from county commissioners. I do not favor this. It should be noted that straight ticket voting has been tried in 16 states and invalidated. It doesn't work. It's not a good thing. And this was also the case in Utah last year. I believe that the more informed the electorate is about the candidates they elect, the better qualified the candidates will be to serve the people they represent. So I urge you to please vote for an informed and educated electorate by voting no on Senate Bill 292. Thank you very much.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 213. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hi, this is Dan Tweed, DANTWEDT, and I would like to thank you for recognizing remote callers. I used to be a resident of Nevada, but I live in Thousand Oaks, California now, where I've run for city council, actually twice, and plan to run again. And in my political opinion, which may be somewhat concerted, AB 292 represents no less than another incremental and clear and present danger to the founding values of our democratic republic. I think any astute observer can see that well-informed citizen engagement, robust voting rights, and a broad and civil discourse are under attack as never before in our country's history. There clearly is a tide of anti-democratic, nativist, and populist fever on the rise, not just here in America, but disturbingly in many countries of the world as well. So I think now must be the time for America and her proudly innovative states, such as Nevada, to support America's presumptive status as leader of the free world. And bills such as AB 292 simply represent another straw placed on the straining back of these citizen engagement values we seek to teach others in the world to emulate. Misguided legislation such as AB 292 that will further entrench saddling us with an un-American two-party political monopoly is dangerous and wrong. Do not send anti-democratic signals to a world that's hungry for leadership in a gathering dark age of oligarchy. Our electorate must not be saddled with the dubious choice between a cult of personality or a bottomless spending pit of endless welfare warfare statism. AB 292 sends the wrong message by severely curtailing our better political options and sacrifices reasoned discourse on the altar of centralized political trench warfare. I must therefore strongly urge a vote against AB 292 today. Thank you. I'm also a ham, KK6, VDR, extra class, clear and monitoring.
We are currently in opposition testimony on Senate Bill 292. If you have joined the call and would like to testify in opposition, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no additional callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Could we see if we have anyone here in the audience in neutral position on Senate Bill 292? Does not look like we do. Can we see if we have anyone on the line in the neutral position on Senate Bill 292?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in neutral on Senate Bill 292, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you. That brings our hearing on Senate Bill 292 to an end. Thank you, Senator Lang. Appreciate that. And we can move on to our other 5 bills. And we will start with Senate Bill 425, which makes a supplemental appropriation to the Division of Internal Audits of the Office of Finance and the Office of the Governor for an unanticipated shortfall related to payroll. And the amount is $76,807 of general fund. And to explain the bill to us, I think, well, I see we have Director Brown on there, but I think we might have Warren Lohman from the Division of Internal Audits as well.
So I will go ahead. This is Susan Brown, the Director of the Governor's Finance Office. Good evening, Chair Brooks and members of the committee. The bill before the committee today requests a supplemental appropriation for the Division of Internal Audits within the Governor's Finance Office for a shortfall in the Personnel Services category. During the process for the special session budget reserves, additional money was identified for reduction in this Personnel Services category in error, which has caused a shortfall of approximately $76,870 or $807 in this account. Approving this bill will ensure that the division has adequate authority to pay all personnel costs through the end of the fiscal year. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director Brown. Does the committee have any questions on Senate Bill 425? Do not see any. Thank you. Thank you, Director Brown. And we will see if we have anyone in support of Senate Bill 425 in the room. We do not. Do we have anyone on the phone in support of Senate Bill 425?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support on Senate Bill 425, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in support at this time.
Anyone in opposition?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition on Senate Bill 425, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in opposition at this time.
Anyone in neutral?
Thank you, sir. To testify in neutral on Senate Bill 425, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you. That will bring the hearing on Senate Bill 425 to a close, and we can open up the hearing on Senate Bill 426. It makes an appropriation to the Office of Finance and the Office of the Governor as a loan for the replacement of the content management and portal platform. The amount is $1,784,500 general fund. And presenting on that bill, we have Alan Cunningham or Timothy Galuzzi from EATS.
Mr. Chairman, this is Matthew Tuma with the Department of Administration. I'm going to just key things off. As you mentioned, we have Alan Cunningham, Chief Information Officer, Tim Galuzzi, Galuzzi, EATS Administrator, and Susie Block, Chief IT Manager, Agency IT Services here. If there are any questions, we're here to present SB 426. It's a budget implementation bill and part of the governor's request. This bill is a one-shot appropriation, like you said, of $1,784,500 as a general fund loan to enterprise IT services for the replacement of the content management and portal platform. As the committee is aware, this project was approved by the 2019 legislature, but the funds were reverted during our current biennium due to budget reductions. So this is a re-request of the same project. I'll now turn it over to Alan Cunningham, who will, for an overview of the program impacts.
Good evening, Chair Brooks and committee members. For the record, Alan Cunningham, State Chief Information Officer. I'm here this evening to answer questions about the need for SB 426, which makes an appropriation to the Office of Finance and the Office of the Governor as a loan for the replacement of the content management and portal platform. Ectron, which is our current content management and portal platform, was put in place in 2009 and was depreciated in 2014. Our team has been constantly challenged to keep it functioning effectively for the last 7 years as technology and security demands from agencies have increased. Currently, the system is not conforming with state security policy as it runs an unsupported version of .NET. This funding is vital to the continuity and future improvement of cybersecurity, functionality, and ADA compliance for the 115 state websites currently using the content management system. The updated capabilities should also attract some of the 66 websites from agencies that are not currently utilizing the current state content management system. I am available for any questions the committee may have.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. Does the committee have any questions on Senate Bill 426? Senator Kiekefer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is more a question for staff, but having this set up as a loan and repaid over, it looks like 2 biennia, is this one looks new to me. I don't remember a process where we've done this before.
Wayne Thorley for the record, LCB Fiscal. Senator Kiekefer, when a general fund loan is provided to an enterprise fund, it's fairly common that it's provided as a loan rather than just a straight appropriation. The loan repayment period over 2 biennia is fairly common.
I've just missed them in the past. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Cunningham or anyone else at EATS? I do not see any. Oh, Senator, please go ahead.
I've just got to ask, this is the first time that I can remember seeing something like, why aren't we doing just a direct appropriation? What's the advantage to going to the enterprise fund and repayment?
Wayne Thorley again for the record, LCB Fiscal. So Senator Goycochea, EATS does not receive general fund appropriations in its budget. It's since it's an enterprise fund, it's supported by the fees that they charge their customers, the state agencies. So they don't receive general fund.
And they can't accept general funds? Or I guess if we appropriate it, I would think they could accept it.
The way it will work is Wayne Thorley again for the record, so each will accept, they will receive the general fund loan, the $1.8 million, and then they will pay it off beginning in FY24. They will have to begin to make payments of no less than 25% of the loan. And the loan repayment will come out of the user fees, the rates that they charge their customers. So in the end, the ratepayers will have paid for this, not the general fund.
Yeah, yes, I understand that. I'm just concerned that they each cannot accept general fund and a general fund appropriation in no way, shape, or form, even if they're flat.
It would be a departure from past practice.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Thorley. Do we have any other questions from the committee for Mr. Cunningham or in general on Senate Bill 426? All right, we do not. Thank you, Mr. Cunningham, and thank you, EATS team. And so do we have anyone here in the audience in support of Senate Bill 426? We do not. So can we see if we have it on the phone in support of Senate Bill 426?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support on Senate Bill 426, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in support at this time.
Thank you. Do we have anyone in opposition to Senate Bill 426, either in the room or on the phone?
So thank you, Chair. To testify. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Nope. Please go ahead. Do we have anyone on the phone?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition on Senate Bill 426, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Do we have anyone in neutral on the phone?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in neutral on Senate Bill 426, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you. So I think we can bring the hearing on Senate Bill 426 to a close, and we can open up the hearing on Senate Bill 427, which makes appropriations to the Division of Child and Family Services of the Department of Health and Human Services for deferred maintenance projects at certain facilities. It's a $766,561 appropriation from the general fund, and I think we have Mandy Davis from DCFS here to present that bill for us.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair. Mandy Davis, Deputy Administrator for the Division of Child and Family Services. SB 427 would appropriate $766,561 to the Division of Child and Family Services for our deferred maintenance projects and replacement equipment for our facilities throughout the state. Section 1 just applies to the deferred maintenance projects for Summit View Youth Center in Las Vegas. Section 2 is for replacement equipment at Caliente Youth Center down in Caliente and Lincoln County. Section 3 is the funding to support the deferred maintenance projects at Nevada Youth Training Center out in Elko. Section 4 is the funding to support deferred maintenance projects down at our Southern Nevada Child and Adolescent Services campus in Las Vegas on Charleston Avenue. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions. I also have details on the specific projects that these funds would support. If you want me to go into any details on those, I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Do we have any questions from the committee on Senate Bill 427? It does not look as if we do. Thank you very much. And so we can see if we have anyone in support of Senate Bill 427. I don't see anyone here. Can we check on the phones?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support on Senate Bill 427, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in support at this time.
Thank you. Do we have any callers in opposition?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition on Senate Bill 427, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no others in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Do we have anyone in a neutral position on Senate Bill 427?
Certainly. Thank you, Chair. To testify in neutral on Senate Bill 427, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Davis. And we can close the hearing on Senate Bill 427 and open the hearing on Senate Bill 428. Senate Bill 428 makes appropriations to the Nevada Highway Patrol Division of the Department of Public Safety for the replacement of vehicles and motorcycles and certain equipment. It is a appropriation of $12,904,978 from the Highway Fund. And to present this to us this evening is Curtis Palmer from the Department of Public Safety.
Good evening, Chair. This is Captain Martin Lesko. I'm going to take lead on this evening. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Chair and the members of Senate Committee on Finance. I am Martin Lesko with the Department of Public Safety. I'm a captain with the Nevada Highway Patrol, and I'm here on behalf of our leadership, Director George Tagliati and Colonel Ann Carpenter. I also have an amazing team of professionals online with us today that are available to assist should it be necessary. Christy Defer and Denny Gortori, two of Nevada's finest administrative service officers. Additionally, Deputy Director Sherry Bergerman and our department's Senior Fiscal Officer, Curtis Palmer, is online with us and available for any questions. Chair, it is my pleasure to be here this evening to introduce Senate Bill 428 to the Senate Committee on Finance. Thank you for inviting us. Chair, with your permission, I would like to introduce each section, its overall objective, and then if there are any questions, we can address them at the end. Is that okay?
Thank you, sir. Please do.
Thank you, sir. Section 1 funds the replacement of fleet vehicles and associated special equipment. Section 2 funds the replacement of our fleet motorcycles and their associated special equipment. Section 3 funds the purchase of oral fluid mobile analyzers and cartridges to be used for alcohol-related offenses. Section 4 funds the replacement of our mobile data computer tablets. Section 5 funds the purchase of equipment items for the division's multidisciplinary investigation and reconstruction teams, also known as our FATAL teams. Section 6 funds the replacement of printers and their associated mobile adapters or peripherals. Section 7 funds the replacement of computer hardware and software. And Chair, before I conclude the presentation on Senate Bill 428, I would like to recommend a conceptual amendment. May I proceed?
Sure. Is that something that you've submitted through your office to fiscal or to our fiscal staff? Excuse me.
Chair, not yet. However, at the conclusion of this meeting, we would like to present that in writing as well. It just came to our attention.
Sure. Go ahead. While you're here, we'll hear what you're proposing.
Okay. The conceptual amendment would change alcohol-related offenses to drug-related offenses in Section 3 of page 2, lines 17 through 21, specifically line 20. And Chair, again, with your approval, we would submit this conceptual amendment in writing to the Senate Committee on Finance following the presentation of the presentation tonight.
All right. Thank you. Do we have any questions from the committee on Senate Bill 428? Senator Kiekhaefer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As related to the proposed conceptual amendment in Section 3, so if you needed $400,750 for alcohol-related offenses, would it be fair to assume that there would be an additional expense related to drug-related offenses if you expand the potential use?
This is Captain Martin Lesko for the record. Thank you for your question, sir. Actually, the proposed conceptual amendment would actually just change the language from alcohol to drug. So it would fund the purchase of these oral fluid testing machines that only test for drug-related or narcotics. So we have our preliminary breath tests, also known as the PBTs. Those test for alcohol-related offenses, and there should be no confusion between the two.
All right. So I apologize. Maybe I'm being dense. Is the amount that's requested in the original print of the bill still necessary, or are we talking about different products for alcohol-related offenses and drug-related offenses?
May I explain? This is Sherry Brigham, Deputy Director. I believe there was simply an error that was made in the printing of the bill and mistook it for alcohol-related DUIs, when in fact it is drug-related. So it's an error in the language only.
All right. So this is how much you need for all of the testing equipment for both drug and for drug-related offenses in Section 3.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarifying question, Senator Kiefer, and thank you, Ms. Bruggeman, for answering that. And any other questions from the committee? I have one. What's the motorcycle equipment that you're getting? What type of motorcycles is the fleet?
Captain Malesko, for the record. Thank you, Chair. The motorcycles that we're purchasing are the BMWs.
Which models are those?
Well, I would have to defer to our expert on the line, Danny Vortori. He's definitely the best person to answer that question. So, Danny?
I think they're the 1.2 RTs. I can get you the exact model number, but they're the police version of the BMW, which we selected that particular platform because it has a warranty now that's 3 years, 60,000 miles. So it's very similar to the ones that we purchased previously in the last biennium. I could get you the exact, I don't have the exact model number here, but I'd be happy to provide that.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just curious. I appreciate it. I have no other questions, and I see none from anyone in the committee, so I appreciate everyone and appreciate Captain Malesko for walking us through that. And we can now see if we have anyone in support of Senate Bill 428. And there's nobody here in the room, so can we check the phones?
Thank you, Chair. The public line is open and working. However, we have no callers at this time.
Thank you. And do we have any anyone on the phones in opposition?
Thank you, Chair. The public line is open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
Those are like no callers, so we can skip neutral.
That's correct, sir.
All
Even in
right.
neutral, the public line is open and working, and there are no callers at this time.
Perfect. Thank you. So we can close the hearing on Senate Bill 428 and open up the hearing on Senate Bill 429. Senate Bill 429 makes a supplemental appropriation to the Office of the Attorney General for a projected shortfall related to extradition costs. It's in the amount of $350,254 from the general fund. And this evening, from the Office of the Attorney General, we have Jessica Hoban.
Hello. Thank you, Chair and Committee. For the record, my name is Jessica Hoban. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Office of the Attorney General. The request for the supplemental appropriation is to our extraditions account. Our extraditions essentially provide for the transport of people who have an outstanding warrant and have been taken into custody in another state, and they are being brought back to Nevada to stand trial, or at least have their case heard in relation to their outstanding warrant. In fiscal year 2019, in compliance with Assembly Bill 543, Section 33 of the 2019 legislative session, we requested a transfer of $160,266 from the state fiscal year 2021 appropriation and moved it into state fiscal year 2020 to cover a shortfall in last year's budget. I have heard that sometimes supplemental appropriations are requested to cover in situations like this where a transfer has occurred. But for this particular program, supplemental appropriation was not requested prior to this bill. In addition to the shortfall that we started state fiscal year 2021 with as a result of that prior year transfer, we're also seeing a shortfall of funding in fiscal year 2021. In addition to the transfer that occurred in fiscal year 2020 from the 2021 appropriation, there are also additional costs that are associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. Travel restrictions have limited the ability for us to transport persons who are incarcerated and bring them across state lines through land transport. So we have had to shift gears and provide all of these transports via air. So that does incur additional costs. The total for both situations that we are projecting is $350,254, and that is the amount that this bill is requesting for a supplemental appropriation in state fiscal year 2021 so that we can cover our projected costs for extraditions to the end of the fiscal year. And I am available to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the committee? Senator Goicoechea?
Probably more for staff, and I don't have it available. How much do we typically appropriate for extradition on a biennial basis? And you can get it to me afterwards. We're probably not going to act on the bill anyway tonight, so.
We'll have to look that up, Senator.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just curious where we were starting from. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Do we have any other questions on this bill? All right. I do not see any questions. Ms. Hoban, I appreciate it. And so we can see if we have anyone in support of Senate Bill 429. We do not have anyone here, so can we check on the telephone if we have anyone in support for 429?
Thank you, Chair. The public line is open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Do we have anyone in opposition to 429?
Thank you, Chair. The public line is open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Do we have anyone in neutral to 429?
Thank you, Chair. The public line is open and working, and there are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Ms. Hoban. And with that, we can bring the hearing on Senate Bill 429 to a close. And that is our last bill on our agenda. So with no other business, we can go to public comment. Do we have anyone on the line for public comment this evening?
Thank you, Chair Brooks. The public line is open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
All right. Thank you so much. With that, we are adjourned.